year-olds across the state. That would be a wonderful, phenomenal thing that we could do, that here in Louisville, we can then build upon it. And even though I've only been in office for 11 months, 10 or 11 months now, sometimes I get asked, what do I want my legacy to be? And while it's early to ask that question, I do have an answer. And I want my legacy to be something that we won't even see for probably 20 years from now. And that's when, in 20 years from now, when that JCPS high school class is graduating, I hope it's the highest academically achieving high school class that has ever graduated from JCPS schools. Because that group of high school graduates got their start with universal pre-K as 3-year-olds. And I want that JCPS high achieving graduation class to be the highest it's ever been until the next one graduates, and the next year, and the next year, and the next year. That's the legacy that I believe we should be leaving for the children of Louisville. That's what creating quality, robust, and accessible learning opportunities can do. That's how we become a safer, stronger, and healthier city. Because our kids deserve that. Our city deserves that. Our future deserves that. So I'm so excited to be with you here tonight, to listen to these great panelists, to hear about your ideas for how we make this a reality, how we invest in our children. This will be a wonderful, transformative change for our city. And thank you all so much for being here tonight. And we welcome you to join us in this effort to make this ambitious goal a reality. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you for everyone else. Also want to let everybody know, as you know, our Ruth Newman always records this, and it will be on the radio next week. And hopefully we are videoing this, that we can put it out, not necessarily live streaming it, but out there, and hopefully maybe even on YouTube. Who knows? We're going to try to get into the 21st century. All right. Obviously, our wonderful former president of many years and education person and 4C person, right, Pat Murrell, is going to introduce the panel. So, welcome.
First, let's talk about why the League is doing this. Why are we interested in early childhood education? Well, obviously it's because democracy depends on what happens to our children, because they are the future citizens. Now, we chose the title of Universal Pre-K because that's the current buzzword. However, we like to call it early childhood education, or early learning, or child development. And that this is important education, and it's not just preparation for something else. We do think that universal access is the right thing to do, but we aren't talking about compulsory. We're talking about universal access. Now, I have to give you this disclaimer. I have been a 4C director and a daycare director and a college professor. I am not neutral. We're going to start with knowledge. I've had to catch up, and I want you to catch up with the wonderful work that is already being done that we can hopefully learn from and build on. We're going to start with Cori Gadansky, who is the Executive Director of 4C for Kids, or Community Coordinated Childcare. She has been working in early childhood for more than 25 years. For the past 9 years, she has served as executive of 4C. During that time, 4C has expanded services and staff, due in large part to their partnership in Greater Louisville Head Start. Prior to joining the staff at 4C, Cori worked for Metro United Way, providing leadership to their early childhood initiatives aimed at improving school readiness. And before Metro United Way, Cori held positions in 2 Louisville child care programs and 2 other child care resource and referrals. And we'll let her go first. I'm going to go ahead and introduce her. Brenda Brummer has been the Chief Operating Officer at Southside Christian Child Care and Preschool for 25 years. You are all of an age. She's grown the business from 6 centers to 16 and has centers operating in Jeffersonville, Indiana, and Jefferson, Bullitt, and Oldham County in Kentucky. And we want to hear about Indiana too sometime. Seeing the need for all children and their families to have access to quality child care, she co-founded and is the president of Child Care Advocates of Kentucky. And what's your title?
Executive Director.
The Executive Director of Child Care Advocates is Steve Magre, who is here with us too. Dr. Jacobi-Vessels is a faculty member of the UofL College of Education and Human Development and is Executive Director of the UofL Early Learning Campus, which is a development center for children of UofL faculty, staff, and students, and the residents of Family Scholar House. She has more than 35 years of experience directing and coordinating quality child development centers. In addition to teaching, she also does research in her field. She and Cori just returned from the National Association of Early Young Children, NAEYC conference, and they may have some news from there about what's happening in the rest of the country. So, Cori, tell us what 4C does.
Can you tell me how to stand up?
Please. Yeah, it's hard when you're at the back.
So,
That's good.
okay. Hi, thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Pat, for inviting me. Pat is one of only, I bet you can tell me how many of us there are. Am I the 8th executive director or the 7th?
Living Greenberg. So I don't know.
So yeah, but Pat was one of the pioneers in the field. So 4C is our local child care resource and referral agency. We were one of the original pilot resource and referral agencies all the way back in 1968 when that first happened. And so we are so proud to still be in the community and doing work to support all things related to early childhood. In the child care field in particular, it's a very fragmented and fractured system is really kind of a loose word to use here. And so it is our job to kind of do everything we can to support those people that are caring for our young children to have everything that they need to be able to do that job. So we do a lot of our work that people know us for is our professional development work, so that early childhood educators have to get a certain number of training hours every year. Many of them come to us for that service. We also do whatever we can to figure out how to get more revenue into early childhood programs. So we sponsor child care centers and family child care homes on the federal food program so that they're able to get reimbursed for the healthy meals that they serve to their children. And we do some back office services for a few child care programs that allows them to focus on the children while we focus on the business. Including our friends at Keystone Learning Academy, which I know the mayor's had a chance to visit a couple of times. In addition to that, we recently, or fairly recently, in the past 5 years, partnered with Family and Children's Place to bring Head Start programming into local child care programs. And so there were several child care centers that were historically funded by Metro United Way, serving children that were in need. And we use this as an opportunity to infuse Reggio-inspired, kind of an ideal learning approach that's usually only available to children in really affluent communities. We put that coupled with Head Start standards and made that possible for children, and it's just been beautiful to see the changes in the past few years. And then a large part of what we do is advocacy, because for more than 50 years, we've still been facing a lot of the same challenges, and while we're doing as much work as we can on the ground to figure out how to support early childhood educators, the problems that, or the barriers that they face really start all the way at the federal level. There's implications for how the state invests in money and even down to the local community. And so a lot of our work is really around educating and trying to bring voice to families with young children and our child care provider community. The last thing that I'll say is that we also fairly recently, the state recognized the large decline in family child care homes. And so the state put together Family Child Care Network of Kentucky. So 4C is the regional administrator of the Family Child Care Network for here in Jefferson County. And so we have a big focus on trying to recruit new, often women, into the field to be able to have a small business in their home where perhaps they're caring for their own children, and then have others as well. So I can share the love with Brenda or whatever you want me to do now, Pat.
Well, give it to Brenda.
Okay.
We'll come back.
Thank you. And thank you, Pat, for the introduction. And I'll tell you about our organization, Child Care Advocates of Kentucky, but I do want to thank the mayor. He said it all, and that was amazing. And so I'm not sure you all even need to hear from the panel tonight because you did an amazing job talking about it. So I come from a different place in early childhood as a business owner. And so I have sometimes a different view than some other advocacy organizations. But we, as owners, we realized that Kentucky Child Care was in trouble and that there were a lot of problems, and we didn't really know how to handle those problems. So we came together as a group of owners, and we thought we were just going to start out saying, okay, we've got a few issues, you know, there needs to be a reimbursement rate increase for low-income children. They hadn't changed it in years, and it just wasn't enough. That low reimbursement rate meant low quality, low pay for teachers. So it hurt our the qualifications for our teachers. And we thought we were going to be dealing with maybe, you know, the benefit system isn't really working for us. We've got some contract issues.
Excuse me, put your mic very close
yes,
to your mouth.
sorry. Is that better?
Yes.
So we soon realized that there was so much more that we were going to have to deal with. We partnered with other child care advocacy groups, early learning advocacy groups. We listened, we learned, we became active members in Frankfurt, talking to our legislators, and the truth of the matter is, we are the boots on the ground. We really are the boots on the ground. So the cabinet welcomed us with open arms, and they said, give us your ideas. We want to hear those. And so we would tell them our ideas. We would tell them what works, what doesn't work. And, you know, we, even at the federal level, have talked with people, and they said, hey, we want to hear from you. We want to know from the people that are actually doing it what we can do to help, what's going to work and what's not going to work. And so out of this group of owners and major issues in early childhood, Child Care Advocates was born, and we love partnering with our friends and our other agencies that do so much, like these ladies right here, that do so much for early childhood. And we're just glad to be part of the solution, part of asking the questions, and that's what we do. Ms. Jill?
having me here, and thank you, Pat, for including me. I think that this is a wonderful time to be in Kentucky and to be part of early childhood, because there is so much happening to try to lift up this field and to address the needs of our youngest children. I have had the honor of working for many years with Cori Gadansky and with Metro United Way, doing a lot of things supporting the work of the mayor's office and working with the governor's office of early childhood. So I've always appreciated that Kentuckians truly have a heart for young children and doing what we can to provide high quality services. I have been in the field a long time. I've been in the field in Kentucky for a long time, and I've always had many, many opportunities to talk with people who were making a difference. I love working with Josie Raymond as well. So it's been a true pleasure. I am the Executive Director of the Early Learning Campus at the University of Louisville. That is UofL's Child Development Center. We serve children from 6 weeks old to 5 years old, 154 children. And we serve many, many purposes. Number one, our highest priority is the children, making certain that every decision we make, everything that we do is about providing the children with the highest possible quality. I couldn't do it without fabulous staff members. They make a difference every single day, and we need to take care of our staff members in order to have high quality child care. And so that's something that I think all of us will be talking about tonight. And so with the Early Learning Campus, we are nationally accredited through the National Association for the Education of Young Children, which is NAEYC, where Cori and I were at the conference this past week. We are also a Kentucky 5-star center, and we serve as a clinical preparation model. So when students are seeking to get degrees in early childhood at UofL, they can come to the ELC as part of their coursework, do observations in our classrooms, do assignments in our classrooms, and work side by side with experienced staff who are modeling best practices. So in that way, our center has a great deal of impact on the quality for years to come in this area, and so I'm very proud to be part of that. We also model for other programs in the area. We will get phone calls from other centers that are wanting to come see what we are doing and talk to us about things that they can do at their center, and we're very pleased to have visitors come to our center, and we always learn from them too. As Cori mentioned, we feel very strongly that the Reggio Emilia approach is very high quality, puts children at the center of the curriculum, values children as people who are deserving of many rights, of making their own choices and driving their own learning. So about 6 years ago, Cori and I were dreaming about how wonderful it would be to be able to take our staff to Italy and to learn more about this approach and to visit those schools. And I'm certain that many of you have heard of programs like Montessori and Waldorf. It is another early childhood approach that is emulated around the world and is very high quality. So we were dreaming, and I went to a conference for the National Association of Early Childhood Teacher Educators. Try that one. And they were talking about taking students to Reggio Emilia, and I thought, I can do that. So I went back and I talked to Cori some more, and we set up an international studies course. So I have two hats at UofL. I'm the Executive Director of the Early Learning Campus, and then I am also a faculty member in the Early Childhood Department in Special Education and Early Childhood at UofL. So I developed an international studies course, and in March of each year, I am now taking students to Reggio Emilia, where we get to listen to the Ateliristas and the Pedagogistas there and learn all about what they are doing, and then go into the schools and see it. And I have to tell you, it's been life-changing for me to get to do that, and we're very happy to have that program. We serve the faculty, staff, and students of the University of Louisville at the Early Learning Campus and residents of the Family Scholar House. Family Scholar House is a separate private nonprofit organization that supports single parents in returning to college to break the cycle of poverty. And so on our campus, we have the Early Learning Campus, and then 56 apartments right around us. And so those residents of Family Scholar House can literally walk across the parking lot and drop their children off at an accredited center. And they are recipients of 3 C's of the Child Care Subsidy Program, and we're very grateful that that does make it possible for low-income families to afford high-quality care.
For that, you know. We're very sorry that that we were not able to have a representative from the Kentucky Governor's Office of Early Childhood, but I do have their annual report, and I wanted to make just a few points because they surely will be the leader or a leader in the governor's universal pre-K approach. They were started with funding from the tobacco settlement. They've gotten several grants. Kentucky developed one of the first in the nation registered apprentice pathways for early childhood instructors and directors, which is not always included. And has that been a good program? Have you all had any of the apprentices?
I have.
Mm-hmm. They had a grant in 2019, which led to the development of their statewide strategic plan. And then they have a new one in 2022. They secured a $36 million preschool development grant from the Administration of Children and Families. They're using data to invest in and implement strategies, addressing the early child teacher shortage, and expanding access to quality care for children. They do several coordination kind of things too, both working with the workforce development and with the public health department and so forth, and the training centers, all the different places that do training for early childhood. So that's something we need to keep in mind. Now, next, I want to go ahead. The next part is from knowledge to wisdom. So I want to pick their brains and get the wisdom from these people based on their years of experience. When I heard the governor and the mayor say they were committed to universal pre-K, my immediate reaction was they don't know what they're saying. It's not a simple thing. There are all kinds of, who goes first? Which children are served first? Because you can't do it all at once. What can we learn from the Head Start? That whole program and programs, and certainly that would affect the rest of the state, the rural counties. What do we do about teacher shortages? Well, they mentioned the apprenticeship program, but as Brenda had pointed out, if they aren't going to get an increase in their salary, what incentive do they have for going the extra mile and getting more training and still working, full day? Where do we start? What can we learn from the COVID money? I never can remember the initials. What can we learn from that? And how was it used with daycare centers, and then what happened when it was gone? And how do we get more teachers? And what do we do to raise the standards? In other words, if the daycare licensing system is a 1 to 5 stars, Can the governor or the mayor provide the money, through the legislature, of course, to so that all the daycare centers, all the child care centers could become 4 or 5 stars? And what are other states doing? Boston has an early childhood program. What can we learn from them? So that's the question. How do we go? Tell us what you would tell the governor as to what needs to happen, and the mayor, if we're going to have truly quality early childhood education that gives our children what they need. So we'll start at this end this time, okay? So it's wide open. You can say anything you want to.
So I think the first thing I would say to the mayor and to the governor is thank you, because it takes a lot to stop and look at our littlest children and realize that is the future, and if we don't do it well now, we will pay for that in 20 years, because the effects from early childhood last all the way up through high school. We have research that shows us this isn't just a matter of opinion. We know that quality early childhood settings are essential. And so for me personally, I would say that one of the first things we have to look at is recognition and respect and compensation for the profession. Very often, early childhood educators still face that idea that, oh, you do preschool, you're a babysitter, all you do is play all day long. And that is absolutely not true. I can honestly tell you that anyone working in early childhood is working far harder than you can possibly imagine and giving their hearts and souls every day. And they are skilled, they are educated, they have degrees in their fields, many of them. Many do not. Why not? Because it's a profession that does not pay to go get your degree and stay in the profession. It has been wonderful receiving the money from the American Rescue Plan, the federal funding from COVID. It has helped centers stay alive to survive. And it helped us to raise salaries. So part of that was looking to aim for a tier 2 with an American Rescue Plan, and you had to pay your staff at least $13 an hour to be a tier 2 center. Staff who are earning $15 in early childhood right now are doing pretty good. Guess how much people at Target earn? And Zestos and TJ Maxx. We cannot compete right now with retail stores, and so we're losing these skilled, educated teachers to go serve ice cream. And so that is something that I think we absolutely have to look at, is looking at the compensation for qualified staff members in early childhood. The next thing that I would say that we really need to do is to make certain that we are having all voices at the table, that we're not just listening to private child care centers, we're not just listening to the public school system, we're not just listening to this interest group or that interest group. There is no way any one of those service systems can provide high quality to all of the children who need early childhood services in Louisville. We have to do it together, and we have to respect and hear each other and work together to come up with a solution that will work for all.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say, great questions, Pat. Great questions. And now absorbing those questions. Jill is 100% right. Our number one problem right now in providing quality child care is our staffing, our workforce. And, you know, I'm not usually in this position where I speak publicly, so I work in child care centers. I'm usually sitting on the floor working. So, you know, we have an opportunity that we've never had before, and I think it's a great opportunity for the city and for the state and even the federal talk about the monies that are going to be invested in early childhood. I think this can be simple. I don't think this has to be hard. It can be as simple or as hard as we make it. I agree it has to be a community effort, everybody in early childhood. And it's been awesome watching all of the organizations come together, you know, and collaborate on this issue. So mixed delivery system is the topic or buzzword that they're using to make sure that the pre-K, the universal pre-K, early childhood education is shared by all in the community. And we all have to do our part. So I do need to say that I think it's very important that we use licensed child care centers for early pre-K, not solely licensed child care centers, but I think it's very important that they be used. It prevents us from having to build facilities and, you know, use the facilities that are already in place. And the home daycares, I think it's very important that we utilize those. This can be easy, and I say that, I'll just share with you, I have centers in Indiana. One day we got a phone call from Indiana and they said, hey, this is On My Way Pre-K. What? And it's a, On My Way Pre-K is what they call their new attempt at trying universal pre-K for the 4-year-olds. And they said, we've made it easy for you. Your center qualifies. We're just letting you know if you want to be an On My Way pre-K provider, you're in. They base this on our quality rating. In Indiana, they have Past Equality, which is equivalent to our STARS program. And I think we could learn from them and study maybe how they've done this. And I'm sure it's not perfect, but I think they've implemented this. We're in year 2 now, and it was as simple as saying, we will take the children that you already have enrolled in your center, and we will just place them on the universal pre-K list, our Past Equality list. We'll put them right in our system, and we'll generate the contract, and we'll pay you every 2 weeks for that child. And they did that at a very high rate. They said, we'll pay you over $400 a week per child. In Kentucky, we get $200 maybe on average. And and it goes up with your Past Equality level, so you're not just making this. I'll tell you what, it's a lot easier to pay my Indiana employees a healthy wage in Indiana than it is in Kentucky. Have $400 a week coming in per child versus the $200. There's your pay for your employees to be able to pay them what they're worth. And so it was as easy as that. They had already set up a system, they had dedicated a team, they had created a department, and they did all the back work. They used the system that they had in place as far as the RVR system that issues the contracts and makes the payments. And so then they said, in addition to that, we are going to send you children that we have on the list that have not been placed yet, and we're going to fill all your empty spots for you. And so, full center, a worthy wage, so we have qualified individuals teaching the classes that want to get their degrees. You know, I don't know how we will compensate these teachers that need the degrees, but I'll tell you what, we've got plenty of teachers out there that if they thought there was an incentive, let's just call it $5,000 to $7,000. You get this degree, and the state or the funding from this grant from the mayor, wherever the money's going to come from, and it obviously looks like everybody's interested in investing that money. So let's take that money and offer these teachers who get their degrees $5,000 to $7,000 bonus annually, or a grant that they get that annually. I'd have teachers lined up to get their degrees. So your degree teacher problem goes away. But they, as Jill said, there's no incentive for them to get those degrees right now. I'm going to be making $13 an hour whether I have a degree or whether I don't. Why would I bother? I mean, of course, there's a lot of reasons, and most of you would say, well, just to better yourself, and but economically, they're not going to better themselves. As far as, so to follow up or finish up with the Indiana, we've got the full classrooms for pre-K. They pay for not only the low-income children, but no matter your income, they will pay for all 4-year-olds. So it's been easy. I don't know that it has to be difficult. We do need to look at that though and see how they did it. But they dedicated a team to set that all up ahead of time. They did their first year on a first come, first served basis. I'm not sure that was the right way to go. We do need to look at some disadvantaged children that maybe need this more than quicker and than other children. So we do need to look at our low-income children, make sure we're serving them, and the equity, we need to really make sure and look at that. So, but that's the system they chose to use. Now they've added a bunch more, and this next year they're going to add a bunch more. And so they're just kind of easing into it like that. So doesn't have to be hard. I think also that we could, in a lot of cities, and not in the rural counties, that we could operate a universal pre-K without having to provide transportation. I have centers in low-income areas of town, and the parents walk the children. We have little areas where we have cubby corrals where they park all their strollers, and so those parents will get them there in the morning and they pick them up at night. They're already doing that. So I think in some of the urban areas we could eliminate that cost, and not only the cost but the time that children spend, and little children spend on buses going here, there, and everywhere. That's time that can be spent learning, valuable time that could be spent learning. So I think that's something we could look at. I would also like to say that, and boast on licensed childcare centers, they're doing it better. We are doing it better. We know this because in the Annie E. Casey Foundation book, what is it? Kids Count, yes. Over 70% of children who attend a licensed childcare center is kindergarten ready, as compared to about 50% that go to Head Start, and I think it was a little less than that for children who go to the public early childhood. And so we're doing a good job. These children leaving our centers are kindergarten ready, and I think that's important to note. I think I'll stop there for now and let Miss Cori tell us a little bit about what she thinks.
Thank you. So I would just like to echo a couple of things that I heard from my colleagues. One, Jill, the first thing is thank you, absolutely. It has taken a long time to have elected officials that both have such a priority for early childhood. And that's a big win right there. I would also say when we talk about mixed delivery, that is something that's really, really important for us to think about. Certainly, public schools have a place to partner in this. The JCPS has public pre-K. Eligibility for pre-K is 160% of the poverty level. If you qualify, JCPS is required to take you. Child care centers, most are private pay. There's about 20% of kiddos in the state that qualify and access the child care assistance program. The eligibility for that is always changing, but we will say as of today, it's 85% of the state median income, and you must be working and or a student in order to qualify for that. And then we have Head Start, which is provided in some child care centers by both OVEC and Greater Louisville Head Start. And the requirements for Head Start is 100% of the poverty level. You don't have to have, there's no job requirement. And there's a certain amount of percentage of children that you can take over income or that qualify because they have an identified special need. So that's already super complicated. So it would be really important that we think about how the value that all of those folks can bring to solving the early childhood crisis. I do think that in some places, the model was to take state investment, give it to the public school districts, and then it would be up to the public schools to then partner with child care. Certainly in our large community with our very large school district, that gets really complicated. So it would be great to be able to have sort of an even playing field where we were all coming to be able to take advantage of potential universal pre-K dollars. The other thing that I would say to them, and actually have said, is of course it is important for us to think about our 4-year-olds, but we actually know that it really begins before birth, and those babies, we have to not forget about them. And please, please don't upset the apple cart so much that you take and start funding all the 4-year-olds, and then the ability of child care providers to serve those babies can be diminished. So we have to be sure that we're not going to have unintended consequences for our babies, because for anybody that's had to find child care for an infant, it is tough. We tell people, first place you should call when you take that test is the child care center that you want to get on their waiting list. My child care director said, I have to tell you, I have heard from some moms before they have actually told their partner they just want to get on the list. A couple of things that I would say that we've piloted because of the American Rescue Plan dollars. One of them that I think is great in Kentucky has been getting a lot of great press about this. We decided to make child care workers eligible to receive child care assistance program dollars regardless of those income. So oftentimes, if I'm a single child care worker with children, there's a good chance that I already qualified for the child care assistance program. Perhaps I was already using it. If I am married or have multiple people in my household, then even though my wage at my child care job isn't very high, because perhaps my spouse's is, that would make me ineligible. During the pandemic, because we have seen such a workforce crisis in the early childhood field, to incentivize people coming to work in childcare, folks are now eligible to have their child's childcare paid for, regardless of income. The only caveat to that is that they can't take care of their own child. You can't get paid to take care of your own child. So for some center directors, there's a price and dancing that they have to do with where the children are and where the teachers are. The other thing that's new that is just barely getting off the ground, because like I said before, there is no like single great solution here, and so we try to do whatever we can, wherever we can, to help sustain early childhood. And the state legislature last year passed some legislation that makes, we call it ECCAP, but it's like an employer contributed childcare assistance program. So just the sort of simple version of that is, if I work at a company who chooses to be part of this program, and then the company makes whatever their guidelines are. Let's just say that my company says for an employee with children that they would give me a $500 stipend per month towards my child care expenses. If the employer does that, then the state matches that $500. Now, just to be clear, because these ladies here feel this every day, that money doesn't come to me as the parent and then I pay the child care provider. It goes through the existing system for child care assistance program, but it is connected. This one's still really early, so I don't think I have a ton of success stories, but it is a way that we do have some places that are already beginning it, and it has a lot of positive possibilities going forward. And then I guess the only other thing that I would say, because you all covered so much, is that when we talk about the workforce, absolutely we got to figure out compensation, the sort of details around how all things work are yet to be determined. But we really are going to have to think about growing the educators and their education at the same time that we're trying to bring in this pre-K or other systems. Because we have some people that have been in this field for a really long time, and their years of experience being that infant teacher is worth probably a lot more than a fancy degree. But we have to figure out how we honor that, and then how we sort of recognize that and support that provider to be able to achieve whatever they need to for that center or family child care home to be able to participate in the system. So I think I'll leave it at that.
Yes. I did want to add that currently in the state of Kentucky through the STARS program, we have a scholarship program. So anyone working in child care can get their degree and have it fully paid for. So I did want to add that.
Complicated, isn't it? There's a question here, and I wanted to ask it anyway. The ratios for daycare licensing. What is the staff-child ratio for 3-year-olds?
12 to 1 and
It's 12 to 1.
12 students to 1 teacher by licensing standards.
Right.
By NACE standards, which she is NACE certified,
Right.
That's a 10 to 1.
So, and what is it for 4-year-olds?
It is 14 to 1, and NACE standards would be 12.
12 to 1.
Could you add the younger, so that's where the ratios are such that it affects the ability to stay in business?
Yes, so we, our infant ratios are 5 students to every 1 teacher. Our 1-year-olds is 6 to 1. Our 2-year-olds is 10 to 1. And then, of course, the 3s are 12 to 1. And the 4s are 14 to 1.
And what are yours?
the National Association that does national accreditation. We have lower staff to child ratios to improve quality. And if you've ever cared for 2 babies at one time, you understand there is a huge difference between caring for 5 babies per one person versus with NACI it is 1 to 4 for infants, with a maximum group size of 12. And for toddlers it is a 1 to 6 ratio with a maximum group size of 12. Did I say 12 for infants? It's maximum of 8 for infants and a maximum of 12 for toddlers. And then for preschoolers, it's a 1 to 10 ratio.
I'm going to go ahead with these questions, but also then the next question is specifically, where should this new program be administered from? The governor's program or the mayor's program? And, well, we'll stop there. What is the average wage of early childhood workers? Is that the same at low end as well as high end child care programs and pre-K programs? Well, it's not the same at both ends. What would you say the average wage? And then, so part of the question is then, in order to qualify for, say in Indiana, for the state-funded program for pre-K, and you could, as I understand it, you could both, they would pay for the students you already have enrolled, the children, and then they could add other children, so for part day or whatever. Sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? But anyway, are there standards from them as to the education level of those teachers, of your teachers?
Yes, there are standards. Those standards are met in your quality rating program. So they're passed to quality. They have to have half of their entire staff that has a child development associate or higher. And so our average wage in Indiana is more than it is in Kentucky.
What is it?
When I do my average hourly wage, I am adding in my director's salary, which of course is more than your teacher's salary. And so in Indiana, we are at $16.50 for an average hourly wage. Our teachers in Kentucky are at $13 an hour.
Now, that's $25,000 a year approximately, right?
And so the problem with that is they've always been underpaid. And so when the ARPA funds, the COVID money, came to us, we did raise our teachers' wages. We were only paying at the time, and this was above minimum wage, $8.25 an hour. And so we took our employees from $8.25 an hour to $13 an hour. That's a big increase. We had COVID funding to fund that. And so now we're looking at where do we get the money now to keep our employees at the $13 an hour. The state COVID money, the grant that they originally put out, it has expired. But what the state of Kentucky did is they said, they pay quarterly. So what they said is, we're going to take some funding and we're going to go ahead and give you another payment. And so we're going to give you another quarter of payment in December. So that helped us not fall off of the cliff. And so, you know, it's huge. It's been so much help. But we're not sure where we're going to get the money to continue to pay the employees the amount we increase them. So
So a lot of times families will say, childcare is so expensive. Why are you making this so expensive? But you have to step back and realize that centers have to pay to keep the roof overhead, the lights on, to feed the children, and to provide benefits for their staff. Staff need to be able to take vacations, have sick leave, preferably medical, dental, vision, and life insurance, and a retirement plan. It's a profession. And so charging $15 an hour to have a babysitter is very different than having your child all day long in professional care. Yes, you might be able to find a babysitter for that much per hour, but are you going to really want your child to spend all of their learning years with a babysitter? No, you want a professional child development service. And I want to go back to Pat's question that she read off a little while ago about who should be overseeing this universal pre-K program. And I think that's above my pay grade. I don't know the answer to that, but I do want to say that whoever is doing that really needs to be aware that each decision can have very long-lasting repercussions. If we go like a model of another state that is just saying, hey, centers, join us and we'll give you this extra money to have your children in our program, then is there a price to pay that all of those centers have to use the same curriculum and do things and do all of the same check boxes that the biggest group touts? It's very important that you take into consideration that there are many centers out there that are providing a very high quality curriculum that really meets the needs of the children in their immediate community. One size does not fit all. All of those sizes matter, and so it's important when we talk about universal pre-K that we are not saying that all children need to get the same program across the state.
Yes. Cori, talk a little bit more about Head Start. What are the Head Start requirements for staff qualifications?
So the staff qualifications for Head Start are higher than in childcare. So for early Head Start, which is for children who are birth up until their 3rd birthday, all of the educators are required to have a CDA, their Child Development Associate, which is 120 hours of training specific in certain areas of learning for the educator. For Head Start, which is for children that are 3, 4, and those that are 5 and haven't gone to kindergarten yet, the lead teacher should have at least an associate's degree, bachelor's preferred, and an assistant should have a CDA. Now, I'm going to just put like a little asterisk on that because we have a lot of workforce challenges here, and very specifically in the Head Start field. JCPS held that Head Start contract for 40-something years, and when they relinquished it, part of the deal was that they said, we're gonna maintain services for the children in our care. We are going to continue to offer certain early childhood services. It's just not going to be Head Start. And so JCPS retained most of the workforce that they had doing early childhood. So it's not like all these teachers came over and said, hey, I'm going to start working on childcare now. And so it has been hard to find qualified teachers. You're able to have waivers through Head Start, through the federal government, to say, I have a teacher who, right now, she's an unqualified lead teacher because she has a CDA, but she is in a course and she's working towards her associate's degree, or she's working towards her bachelor's degree, and as long as she's continuing to make progress on that in the next 2 years or so, then that's okay. Then we're allowed to do that. But the challenge is that we have a lot of waivers in our Head Start program, and then, to be honest, we still have childcare like rooms and positions that are unfilled. So we are not able to serve all of the children that we are funded to serve at this time because we don't have the grown-up people there to take care of them. So it continues to be a challenge, and like Brenda and Jill we are concerned about what happens after this final payment from the state, because each of those payments from the state was about $50 million each time. And so that's a big chunk of change to ask the legislature to come up with.
We've got a chicken and eggs situation, don't we? How are we going to get teachers? I mean, I taught at Spalding, and they ended their ECE program because no one was going to enroll if all they were going to make was $25,000 a year. So, yeah, we've got a lot of ideas for the legislature. For the in-home care places, how are the owners paid and or subsidized? And what is the usual cost per child? And what are the limits as to the number of children? Well, we've told you that. Those are daycare, those are licensing requirements.
So family child care in the state of Kentucky, it's kind of complicated, but essentially it is doing care in your own home for up to 6 children. They've got stuff about if you're related to the children, if you're not related to the children. And then you can also be, in some states, they call them a large family child care home. Here in Kentucky, we call it a type 2 center for some reason. And in those instances, you could serve 10 to 12 children. The state says you could serve 12. A lot of zoning says you could have up to 10. And it is an ongoing challenge, and we have fabulous family child care coaches that work with these providers to be able to even say what kind of salary they make, because essentially a standard family child care business model is, I'm going to charge all of you $200 a week. I'm going to pay for all the food. I'm going to pay for whatever's left is apparently what I make. That actually proved very challenging when those ARPA dollars were released, and for people that wanted to be able to draw down the most money from the state to be like Jill's program, where they're in tier 2 because they're saying they can pay $13 to every staff minimum. Family child care providers didn't have a good way of proving how much they were paying themselves, so in many or most instances they were only ever able to get kind of that base reimbursement because it was hard to provide documentation that they paid themselves more than $13 an hour.
Are child care workers and early childhood educators the same? I think they've answered that, actually. You want to say something? Yeah.
I would just like to point out that there are quite a few staff members working in centers right now who have a high school diploma or a GED, which is the minimum requirement in the state of Kentucky to work in a licensed child care center. I have far more high school diploma/GED aides that I would like to have. Not that they're not good people, they're wonderful, but I would like to have more highly qualified staff, and we have fewer highly qualified staff since COVID than we used to have. And so, yes, we do have people who have less than a CDA, quite a few people working in the field.
Oh, I know. When I was, what we found, as soon as they got their CDA, they went to Head Start because they earned more money. So, let's see. What is the status of early childhood in Louisville? I don't know how. Are we answering that as we go?
Okay. I would say we're good. We're really good. We just need some help. We are thinking all the time. We have great groups of people who come together and really think about how we can work together to make this even better. I'm in the National Coalition for Campus Children's Centers. It's campus-based children's centers across the nation. And I can't tell you how many times they would talk about how hard it is to get this and this, and I'll say, well, Kentucky has this program, and they all go, oh my gosh. So Kentucky in many ways is really ahead. of a lot of other states. For instance, the child care subsidy program is very much admired by other states, and we're very fortunate to have it. We are looking for ways to bring more people into the early childhood field and make it as doable as possible for people who are working full-time to put food on the table. So it's very difficult to be a traditional college student, go to school 4 years full-time and get your degree. The people we need to get degreed are the people who are working in the classrooms every day. So at UofL, we created a new degree program called Degree in Organizational Leadership and Learning with an emphasis in early childhood. And the beauty of that program is that staff members can do a portfolio of all of their years of experience and training and get college credit for their experience. The drawback to that is it's not truly a degree in early childhood. It's a degree with an emphasis in early childhood. And the strength of that program is learning about how to lead an organization. So I would love to start thinking about some creative ways that we can increase the emphasis on early childhood in those programs, but all of the universities are looking at these challenges.
Oh, there's a lot of questions here. A mixed delivery system is necessary to meet the demand for child care. But how can we assure that need does not trump the additional cost to deliver high quality early learning? Nationally, high quality early learning costs twice that of basic child care. Any comments?
I'm talking too much.
No, you're not.
No, I would just say that that is going to be the challenge to the mayor and the governor is it, I'm going to just say without any shame, it costs a lot of money to provide high quality early care and learning for our youngest children. Mostly because it requires humans to do that. You can't widget that out. Like and so it does cost more. That will be one of the features that we will have to have if we're going to actually have universal pre-K, is where the additional dollars coming from. It's going to have to be more than what we have invested right now.
A lot has been discussed about teachers and the services that are provided. No one has mentioned parents or families. What about the parents? How are they involved or engaged? How are parents taught to work with their children? To what extent are parents' voices included in making decisions about ECE?
Families are absolutely essential to everything we do. They are central. In any quality program, family engagement is a high priority. And it is important that you hear the voices of the families, find out what their values, their goals are for their children, and work together with them to reach optimal development for the children. And so in our center, we have many opportunities for family engagement. We have a family organization that meets every month and talks about initiatives and interests that they have. We have daily face-to-face conversations with the families. We have online communications that go two-way with our families. We have many events that involve opportunities to learn about how young children learn. For instance, we do a spring festival every year where all of the classrooms have activities set up in the classrooms for the families to do together with their children, and we connect what they are doing to the Kentucky Early Learning Standards. So we literally have signs there that explain what your child is learning while you are playing together with them. We do other opportunities throughout the year. Part of my research has been doing dramatizing children's storybooks to teach kindergarten readiness skills. And it isn't picking up a book and reading it with a lot of emphasis and today you taught your child. And there are some great benefits to just read to your child. That's important. If you talk to your child while you're reading with your child and you ask them questions about what they think might happen next, or have you ever done those sorts of things, that takes it to the next level. And in this research, I've been working together with theater educators and teaching families to take the idea from a storybook, what are the characters, what are the problems, and how do we let the children become those characters while the teachers are those characters too, to teach math, science, literacy, and social skills. And it's very highly engaging. And we did this virtually, and after we worked together with the children and their parents, then we met with the parents virtually and talked through the lesson and made all the connections to the different content areas that were covered.
You have to have words before you can learn to read words, right?
Right.
These all kind of go together. State data says currently 2/3 of childcare seats in Jefferson County are 1 or 2 stars, which is not high quality. How do we help them build sustainable, high-skilled, educated staff, particularly for family daycare?
Jefferson County is a little bit notorious for having a lower participation rate in the state quality rating scale. So the way that it works now is as long as once you're licensed, then you're a 1 star, and then you can choose to go higher than that. There are a handful of programs that have said, don't want any of that state money, we are opting out of the system altogether, and they've chosen to do that. Many faith-based are usually the folks that opt out. So there's that. I would say there's 2 things that are at play with the lower quality ratings in the city. One is there are some places that need more support, and so there are lots of projects, and 4C puts opportunities out, and Child Care Aware of Kentucky to help be able to increase those star ratings. And a lot of those are in our more under-resourced parts of town. A lot of those folks have staff who come from the same neighborhood where they're serving children with a lot of needs. So there's that group, and that is a group that we work really hard to figure out all the different ways that we can reach those folks. There's a second group that perhaps that 1 or 2 star isn't necessarily fully reflective of their quality because they serve all private paid children. So if I'm a child care director in the East End and I have a full center and a waiting list and all of my parents are private pay and I don't have any child care assistance program dollars, then I might think that it is not worth my time to go through all of the efforts that go along with the STARS rating system, because the majority of the benefits the monetary benefits that you receive from the STAR system is based on how many subsidized children your program serves. So that makes the sort of return on investment a challenge for some folks from their view. Now, that does not mean that we don't encourage people to continue to be in those in the STARS rating system, but that does maybe help give an idea of why there might be a beautiful program where you would be happy to send your children and grandchildren that is a 1 or 2 star, and it is because they've just chosen to not move up.
Would you support tying bachelor early childhood starting salary to that of public school salary? Governor Beshear has said he supports statewide starting salary just over $40,000. ECE teachers deserve a living wage. Yes.
Yes, we agree. They definitely deserve a living wage. And they earn that.
Yes, they do. Absolutely. Parents are interested in licensing of daycare child centers and in fair compensation. Are legislators more concerned about the impact on our current workforce, getting women back to work?
Seeing a legislator in this.
Can we speak for the legislature?
I would say that there's not a one-size-fits-all. If I could have all Josie Raymonds,
Yes.
then we would have amazing investment in early childhood. But she has a lot of colleagues who represent various views of a continuum. I will tell you, We work with a lot of other advocates. There's a lot of meetings that happen even in this time prior to the session. And I wish that this wasn't true, but there are a handful, or perhaps a little more than a handful, of folks who say to us during those meetings, well, moms of young children should just be at home with those children. And it's almost 2024, and the fact that that is something that is said is hard to believe, and yet it is true. That is not like for everybody, but it is a difficult, there's not a one size that fits all of our state legislators.
Are you aware of any efforts to engage elderly residents or retirement communities to assist in some positive way with early childhood education?
So I think that there probably are a variety of things. I know of one program that is opening specifically to have their elderly population to work with an early childhood population. But I think that there's probably some that I don't actually know about. Do you all?
We did that in whenever it was I went back to work after, anyway, in the late 1990s. And we opened Louisville Central Community Centers, and ElderServe opened Oak and Acorn, the Oaks and the Acorns. University closed first, but just recently the ElderServe closed also. So it was a good idea, and it was fun while it lasted.
Great idea.
Okay, I'm feeling a little tentative saying this out loud because I thought Cori would say, this is it. And I go, yes, that's right. But I do believe that there was funding that came out recently for new centers being built that would combine elder care and early childhood, just startup funding. But I can't speak to that because I have to admit I read it and went, okay, it doesn't apply. Because I'm not building a new center right now, but I do believe I saw that come across my emails. And at UofL, we did kind of a hybrid project. And it was part of research. We brought elderly people to the early learning campus on their center's bus twice a week to do music therapy with 3-year-olds. And so they would come in and sing songs and read stories with the children, and it did benefit both the children and the adults coming in to work with them.
I can't vouch for the data here, but this universal preschool makes economic sense. Every dollar spent saves $7 later on. How do legislators justify not funding preschool? Well, we can't speak for the legislators. Yeah, I'd like to just say a few words here. We often hear people visiting a center will say, "Oh, they're just playing." Play is not frivolous. Play is discovering the world, discovering your body, learning how to be a human being in the little housekeeping corner and so forth, and learning how to communicate. And I have another thought. Early childhood education teachers should be, I think, not instructors, but facilitators of learning. For example, instruction is blue and yellow make green. Discovery is, I wonder what would happen if we put some put some blue and yellow paint together. What would happen? Now, which is the better approach? And then I'll close with one other story. One of our education committee members is a grandmother, and one day after our committee meeting, she showed me some pictures on her cell. Her 2.5-year-old grandson was at the park on the slide, and he wanted to know which worked the best, sliding with socks on, shoes on, or barefoot. So he tried it, and socks was the best. But he also then tried climbing up, and climbing up, I can't remember which one it was. It was was it barefoot? Worked the best. And that's a 2.5-year-old. The potential that we are wasting when we don't provide quality early childhood. And it's the workforce of tomorrow depends on how we raise those children. Thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you from all of us. I do want to ask a little question here. Raise your hand, and we're all, I can tell we're all, with one exception, maybe Katie Davis, who's fairly young. Most of us are old. How many of you went to daycare when you were young? Okay. All right. It's interesting to hear people say, oh, well, you know, this is all new. Well, it's not new. I'm quite old, and I went to daycare when I was very, very, very young because my mother worked. And that was a long, long time ago, and Susan talks about it too. So here's what I want to leave you with. There's been research out there that says that we should pay kindergarten teachers probably $240,000 a year because of what they do and what they mean to our children. Now, I know that money will not solve all of these things, but as a nation, it is absolutely shameful that the people who take care of our children all the way through high school, but particularly these young children, that we pay them so little. $13 an hour, $16.50. They ought to be making $50 an hour minimum if you think about what they do for our children. So thank you all. I don't know that we'll get there, not in my lifetime, but we need to keep working on it, and we need to keep working on these legislators. One of them I heard say last year, well, we don't need pre-K. You know, my kids didn't have pre-K. He is a lawyer in a town, and we know how much money he's making. And of course his kids didn't have to have pre-K because they were doing all kinds of other things. So those are the voices that we have to change, and we have to talk to them on a regular sort of basis. And I don't know if shaming does it. It probably won't, but we should be ashamed. So thank you for the program. Thank you again. Let's give them another round of applause.